Greetings, pilgrims. Welcome to another episode of the Polygon Pilgrimage, and I've got something very cool to share with you today. So I've got a lot of requests to do these kind of pickup items. These are similar to like the style you'll see in like Fortnite, but more so like the Lego games, or the original request was something like Temple Run, where you run over a coin, and then the coin just sort of becomes a 2D element, and it flies up into the corner. So I want to show you our little sample scene here. I'm going to show you what it does. Then we're going to build it together, okay? So here we have 3 resource types, and as an added bonus, I combine this with another request to do objects that are kind of 2D but 3D, so these always face the camera, no matter which way I turn, but they are 3D objects in the world. So as you can see, we have wood, stone, and metal. That's kind of the Fortnite-ish part here. And then when I run over these to collect them, you'll see that they fly over to their spot, and they are added to the total. We can see our total here that we have 1 of each resource now. Now over here I've put them in rapid succession, so as I run down the line, you'll see that they get added to their appropriate spaces. And if they are added in a little bundle like this, like say you killed an enemy and they drop some resources and say there's a little bundle here, if I run over them all together, they'll go to their appropriate spaces, no problem. So we have 5 of each resource, and then we're also going to talk about how we can create resources that are not visually the same as these, but they equate to these. So we have these barrels here, which are wooden objects, so when I run over them, they give me wood resources. Okay, so that's our little scene here, and we got the pieces there, and I'll go over all the things that we're using. And first and foremost, let's talk about the icons themselves. I did not make these. These are actually an asset store purchase. Let me show you here. So on the asset store, this is the 100 resource and commodity icons by Yusaf. Thank you so much, Yusaf. These are incredible. I want to give him a shout out. There will be a link in the description for this page here. It's just $10, guys, and you get 100 of these, and they're really nice format. They come in 3 different formats. You'll see them here as we go through it, but there is a solid background like this. There's a fully transparent, which is what we're using, and then there's a transparent with kind of a glow. So you can see all of it here. You can read my review. You can read all the other reviews here. So well done, sir. Very nice setup, and we used it to good accord here. All right. So let's get into it here. So this is my example scene from last time, and I'm just using Pro Builder to build up the world here. And then I have a third-person controller that I'm running around the world with. So that's really all there is to it. And we're going to make 3 scripts together. I know, scripting, programming is scary. No, it's not. You'll be fine. And this is going to be real nice and easy. It's only 180 lines, and that's including all the nice spacing and all the comments that I've got for you guys. So let me bring that up and show you real fast. This is what we're going to be making. This here, okay, I know it's a lot of text. Don't worry. This guy, not too much text. And this guy, 2 lines. I think you can handle it. Okay, so we're going to do all that together, and I'm going to talk about how we created these resource icons in the world. What are they? How do they work? You can see them all here. And then we're also going to talk about how we create the prefabs. So you can see the prefabs here that we can put in the world. So it'll be nice and easy for you when you're all done to populate your world here and throw some icons in. And we'll make them work. So when you pick them up, they'll fly over here, and we'll update our numbers. All right? Sounds good. Okay, so let's start with our player. Since this is the kind of central focus, is as we're running around as our player, we want to make sure that he can do things in the world. So he's going to have this first script here called Collectable UI. All right? And then we're also going to need a canvas, and the canvas is actually this thing. Let's pull way back. There you go. So the canvas is our UI. This is our user interface over top of the world. And the canvas, if I expand this, has 6 items on it. These right here. It's essentially 1 image for each of the resource types. Think of this as our main kind of icon. And then it has a text object. Now this text object is using the Text Mesh Pro. All right. So for the character controller and the Text Mesh Pro, and for the resources, we're all going to have to import things into our project. And the way you do that is we're going to go up here and say Assets, Import Package. Now you're going to get characters to get the characters. And the Text Mesh Pro, you can just go on the Asset Store and search for it. Or I already have it in my downloadable things because I've already purchased it. It's free. But you can get it from either one. And if you just download it, there'll be a button to say Import. And you'll import it. You'll see a little progress bar, and then boom. So if I look at my assets now, you'll see that amongst all the other junk I have here, right? Here's TextMesh Pro. So that's what this looks like. You don't have to touch any of this. It's all going to be done over here, all right? So just leave that alone. And then when you download the other stuff, I made a folder here to kind of collect all my things together. This is the resource pack here. So I just go into that folder, go into the PNG, and look, we got tons and tons of icons to choose from here. All right, we're only using 3 out of all these wonderful icons, but that's where they are. So that's nice and easy to do. Don't worry about these. I was trying to do some animations. We'll work on that next time. I found the animations are a lot harder than they should be. So I'm going to go forth and I'm going to learn it well, and I'll come back to you guys and show you how it works. Okay, so we're all set up. We've got all of our stuff imported. I'm just going to drag the third-person controller in. So when you go to import this guy, right, we're going to go Asset, Import Package, Characters. I've already imported all of them, so I don't know what really you'll see, but it'll be like this. And what I do is I just kind of collapse all of these, and then only really the ones that I want are the ones that I choose. So for you, I leave most of this stuff alone. This should all be checked. It's unchecked because I already have it in the project. And for the characters, I just uncheck first person and check third person. Then click import. All right. So then you'll see him under assets. It's going to be character. Let's see, where is he going to be at? He's going to be under standard assets, characters, third person. Under prefabs, there's going to be 2 things here, an AI or a third person controller. So here he is. See, we just drag him into the scene. And he's exactly like this here. All right. Now I'm going to bring him up a bit, and I made a little environment. So you're going to have to make a little environment, make sure that it has collision so that he doesn't fall through the world. Now, my camera, my main camera, is up here, and what I've done is I have a special script on this called Smooth Follow. And this is a script that I wrote where I follow tutorials, so don't think it's something crazy awesome that I did. But what he does is he follows this target, and I gave it a speed and a rotation. So when I play the game here, you'll see that if I run, if I run forward and then I stop, the camera kind of settles a little bit. See how it kind of settles, and if I turn, it kind of settles. You don't need that. You can work with just the default camera that comes with the character. It's just a little harder to see your environment. But I'm not going to go over that for this tutorial because this is about the resources. But I will include the script if you'd like to have the script. And the way I have it set up here is my follow target and my follow offset. The follow target is the third person character. And then my follow offset is this other object that I've placed. And it's just kind of behind him. And this tells it how far back to hang back. Okay? So those are the 2 things that you have to put on your camera along with that script. So I'll include the script, and if you want to play with it, you're welcome to. All right. So with all of that said and done, we have our character running around the world. Now we need to have him be intelligent about when he runs over something, how are we going to react to this? So that's going to be our first script. So if we go into our assets here, in our scripts folder, we're going to create our first script, which is going to be this guy, which is the Collectable UI. All right, so let's open him up, and this is what he is. So I'm going to go over all of this with you, line by line, so just follow along. When you create a new script, by the way, we're going to right-click and say Create, and then I have a bunch of stuff here, but you're looking for a C# script, and you're going to give it a name. So, example script, and hit Enter, then just double-click it. And now you might have mono-develop, like I have for now until it goes away, or you might have Visual Studio. Either way, it's fine, okay? It'll open up and you'll have stuff like this. Now, you may have seen the jokes and everything. There's 2 types of programmers. I'm one of these. I like to kind of have all of my curly braces on the same, vertical plane here. It helps me kind of determine where things begin and end. But do as you like. So, when you have all of this set up, then follow along here and we're going to create some stuff. There you go. Now it's only 179 lines. So we need a couple of things to start with. And these are all public variables, and if you're very new to programming, a variable is just like a pointer or a box you can put something in. So we're going to say get this and put it in this box. So I'm going to say public camera cam. So we're going to say we're going to create a camera. We're going to call it cam. I'm going to make a canvas called canvas. I need a public vector too, so that's 2 points, x and y. And I'm going to call it world to screen. And we'll see why in a moment. Just follow along. Game object pickup. Game object collectible type, just like this, underscore, And make sure you got your little thing at the end here, because otherwise it's not going to accept it, okay? Game object, new collection UI image, all right? Another vector 2 of starting position, vector 2 of ending position, and a float called speed. Now, with all of these set up, if you just save it, so if I say build all, there you go, it'll build all my scripts. And then if you put the script on your third-person controller, so you select him here, and then click and drag and drop the script, you'll see this here. You'll see all this craziness here, and it's like, oh wow, what is all this stuff? Well, don't worry about it too much. Most of this is going to get automatically filled in. Very little of this we have to actually set ourselves, all right? This is just, we're publicly viewing it because we want to see the numbers and make sure it's working. We don't have to actually have it be in our face, but I just have it all set to public. If you change each of these words public to private, you won't see that show up. It'll all happen behind the scenes, okay? So you want to put this all right underneath here where it says public class, and mine says collectible underscore UI, and right before the start. This is called declaring. We're going to declare everything. Say, up front, these are the things I need to know. Now, start happens immediately as soon as this thing exists in the world, which means it's the character, so we don't have to worry about that. Update, as Unity will tell you here, happens once per frame. We don't actually care about any of that. We want to create our very own new function. And the way we do that is you type void, space, and then the name of your function, name of function. And then you usually end it like this. And in these parens, you can put any parameters you want to pass it, or any parameters you want to get from it. And then you always have to give it the curly braces to officially open and close, and everything in between is going to get executed whenever you call this function. All right, so I don't actually need that, so I'm going to get rid of him. But we're going to create this one, and just like this, case is important. Void, capital O, on, capital T, trigger, capital E, enter. So on, trigger, enter. And in the parens, we want collider, just like that, and we're going to call it cull. So what this means is, when I encounter a trigger, get the name, or get the thing, not the name, get the thing that I collided with. All right? This means that when we're running around the world and we run over something, we're going to say, hey, what is this thing I just tripped over? So then the rest of this here, you'll see that I'm actually explaining it as we go. So let's get a reference to the thing we ran into. So that's going to be pickup, which remember we set up here already. Pickup. So we're going to fill pickup with the game object, the thing in the world that we collided with. So now we have a reference to it. This is kind of like if you have a room and somebody comes in the room and then someone else is already there, but they didn't see that person come in, and they just look at you and say, who came in the room? You now have a line you can draw and point at that person and say, oh, that's, Bob that just came in the room. So this is our pointer to Bob here. Then we're going to fill another variable. What is our collectible type? Well, our collectible type, we're going to actually reach into the object we just tripped over and get some information. So we're going to set up this line, but it won't work right away until we write the other script, okay? So just hold on with that. But we're going to say, get a component that is on pickup, and it's going to be a script called collectible type, and then I want to get its collect type, all right? And you have to do exactly this syntax. So it's going to be pickup dot get component, and then you get the little carets here, and in between the carets you put the name of the script that you're looking for on this object, and it has to be precise. So it is going to be called collectible type. And then immediately following you put the parens. We have no parameters at the moment, so it's just empty. Now we're at that point, so now we can do dot and get all kinds of things. So we can say dot name, dot value. We want to say dot collectible type, because we're going to have that as a variable like these. So we're going to reach into another script similar to this and go, hey, what is your collectible type? And it's going to be one of these, okay? So this just means we ran over something and we're figuring out what type it is. Cool. Now that we know that information, what we need to do is get a point on the screen that relates to the point in the world that we picked this up. So the idea is that the point at which you pick it up in the world, I want to know from the camera to that point, how does that translate to a point on the screen? Because that's where we're going to spawn our icon that moves. So we're going to fill another one of our variables. Remember up here we made this variable. Vector 2 points, X and Y. Where on the screen? We're going to fill that with camera dot world to screen point. So this is a function built into all cameras that you can tell it, hey, if I give you a starting point and where the camera is currently looking, tell me where this relates to on the screen. So we're going to say camera dot world to screen point, and then in the parens we're going to say cull, the thing we ran over, the thing we ran into, get its dot transform dot position. So get the point in 3D space where the thing is that we ran over, and tell me how does that relate to the screen. Cool. And here's an extra line I've got in here. You don't actually need this. This is actually just printing that in our log. And I'll show that to you when we run the script. But you don't even need this line. You can get rid of that line. So now that we've done that, we're going to actually spawn something on the screen. But at the same time that we spawn it here, we're going to fill another bucket with a reference to that so we can do stuff to it, okay? So that's this guy here. He's a game object. Everything in Unity is a game object, and then you can go down from there. And we're calling it new collection UI image because this is a collectible item. This is the UI, this is the image of it on the screen that's going to move. All right? So we're going to say new collection UI image equals, and this is the language we use to say, I want you to spawn something in the world. Every game made in Unity where you have a gun and you fire a bullet, this is how the bullets are made. Okay? Generally speaking. So we're going to instantiate, which means make a copy in the world of what? Of our collectible type, which we've gotten from this thing, right? And we're going to put it where? We're going to put it on the canvas. And canvas.transform just means the default transform, whatever the 0, 0 position is for the canvas, put it there. And you need this false because that's part of the syntax here, because we don't want to do what the false tells us. All right? So there we go. So we've made a new thing appear on the screen. Excellent. So now we need to get a couple more bits of information. Let's get the type of resource from the collectible type. So just like we did up here where we got what type is it to put on the screen, we need to know what type of resource it is. So this is different. This is like, is it a barrel? Is it, a metal box? This is saying, is it wood, metal, or stone? That's what we care about right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a string, which is just text. Well, it's not text, it's a string, which can be numbers and letters, but in a written sentence type format, called resource type. And we're going to say, for the pickup item we just picked up, get its component of collectible type, just like we did before, but this time get me the resource type. So there are only two things, collect type and resource type, that our collectible type actually has on it. Really, it's just a placeholder. If we look at that script really fast, I don't want to confuse you, but if we look at this script really fast, look, there's only two things there. It's literally just a bucket to hold these 2 bits of information. What is the thing I'm going to spawn on the screen? And what kind of a resource is it? What material is it? Okay? So we come back here. So up here, we got what kind of a thing do we put on the screen? And here we're getting what type of material is it? That's just a piece of information. That's all we're getting right now. Okay, so then we're going to pass that along. Now, again, this is referencing something we haven't made yet, but hold on, just go for it. So we're going to say, all right, that's cool. There's going to be a script on this thing that we just spawned. Because we're spawning from a prefab, we know that it's always going to be there. And the script is called pickup UI move. And that means that this is the thing we've now picked up, and it is moving the UI element. It's moving the image across the screen, like you just saw, right? So we're going to say, okay, on the thing we just made, get that script, and we're going to call this function called set resource type. So that means that we're actually toggling something. Instead of asking a question, we're giving an answer, all right? And we're going to say, hey, this string that we just got of what resource type are we, let's pass that along, okay? So just like that, type it just like that, and I'll show you in a moment when we get to the other script, you'll see that it makes sense. Then once we've passed along all this information, we know what we're making, we know what to make it look like, we know what kind of material it is. Now we can actually set it up to start moving, and to do that, we need to set its starting position. So we're going to fill this variable called starting pos. Again, it's a vector 2, so it's an xy. We're going to say starting position is equal to the new thing that we just made, get its rect transform dot anchored position. This is the way that UI objects work that are part of a canvas. So any button, any icon on your UI has a rect transform because it's a rectangle shape. Even if it's square, it's a rectangle with two equal sides. And you're going to get its anchored position because it does have an anchoring. Even if you don't set one, there's a default. So this is just the position on the canvas is essentially what this equates to. All right. So we're going to fill our bucket with that. And then I'm going to say, hey, bucket, your value is now this thing that we calculated earlier, which is where in the world does it equate to where on the screen? That's where you're going to put it. All right, that's it. Then we're going to destroy ourselves. We're going to destroy the object that we ran over because we're done with it. All we needed to know was when we hit it, we needed all this information, and now we're done with it. It's like a shopping list. Once you're done shopping, you throw it away, right? You've got everything. Cool. So this script is done, so save that. And again, this goes on our player. Okay. So he's right there, and you can see all of that right here. Now, we need two more scripts. So again, we're going to right-click, create, and we're going to go to C# script. All right, two more, and they're nice and easy, okay? Let's do the simplest one first. This one is called Collectable type. All right, so just call it that, hit enter, open it up, and you can get rid of everything in there. We don't need update, we don't need update, we don't need start, nothing, okay? We just need this guy, public class collectible type, open bracket, close bracket, and we need exactly 2 lines. This is the simplest script. Public game object collect type, public string resource type. That's it. We're done with that script. Nice and easy, right? Okay. One more script, I promise. This is the last one. And this is the one that does the most, but it makes sense. I'll show you. So this is called pickup UI move. All right. And this script, if you look at our objects here, we go into our objects, prefab. This script is actually on each of the things that are going to be on the screen because this is them actually moving through space, through screen space up into the corner. All right, I just want to give you a little bit of reference as to what it is we're creating and why. Here, we'll do it like this so you can actually see kind of both at the same time. Very cool. Okay, so a couple of things here that are kind of confusing, but if you just follow with me here. This thing where it says range, 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 that's just a fancy way of making these sliders for you to make it easier to deal with the numbers. All right, so don't worry about that. First thing at the top here, you are going to have to include this using TM Pro. So capital T, capital M, capital P, RO. This will allow us to access the Text Mesh Pro objects. All right. So just add that to the end there, no problem. That just tells Unity, hey, beyond the normal stuff that you allow me to do, I need to add some extra features. I need to bolt on like a DLC for features for my coding. Very cool. So these ranges allow you to make the slider appear. So it's really cool. If you want to add this to your code for anything you do, you can make this slider. It makes fine-tuning things really easy, a lot more human and less programmatic. So you just tell it in these square brackets, range, and then in parens, you tell it a far left value and a far right value. So usually a negative and a positive, or you can go from 0 to 1, whatever you like. So I'm going to call it, I'm going to give it a range, and then I'm going to call it public float target position left, and I can give it a default value. And I'm going to give it a default value of negative 450F. And I think I actually ended up using a different value at the end, but whatever your default is, I would make it that left-hand line, which we'll talk about that in a little bit. So another range, public float target position top, another range float speed. And that's just these 3 right here. Very cool. Okay. Then we need a public float called close enough. And for me, I've set that value to 5 manually. And then we need some private variables. These are private, which means you don't actually see them over here because we don't need to. These are all just kind of, think of these as like scratch paper in math. You use these to do things in the background, but you don't actually need it to do stuff, here. We don't need to see it. We don't need to actively edit it. So we need a vector 2 target position, vector 2 current position, a rect transform of object transform, and a float of distance to target. Then our public stuff. So this is stuff that we want to edit or to also get filled in for us, but we want to see it. So we need a game object of our resource image, and that is going to equate to, if I go to the game view here, this here. These are the resource images, okay? I'll show you kind of a practical example as we go. Resource text is going to be a handle to these numbers. Okay. Then the string resource name type name, and that's going to come in here. That'll tell us wood, stone, whatever. And then text amount and get text. These are kind of worker bees as well. They really should be private, but that way we can see them here. We can make sure they're working properly. Okay, so let's get started. So again, void start. Start means that as soon as this thing exists, and this thing will exist when our previous code did that instantiate, when we spawned it into the world. So this stuff happens right away. All right. So the one thing we're going to do is get a reference to our object, and we're going to say object transform. That's what that's short for, is equal to the rect transform of our object. And because it's a UI object, it has to be a rect transform. Okay. We're going to fill our current position, this guy right here, with our dot anchored position. Okay. So wherever it is on the screen, that's where we currently are. Makes sense. Then we're going to get a reference to where we want it to go. This target position is actually going to be a concatenation of the top left and top right. So we can actually adjust these, fine tune, and then this value is going to be those two put together. See here, new vector 2, target position left, target position top. Very good. So that will kind of combine those together. Then right here, we're going to run the update total, which updates the UI text for the number of this resource. So the moment that we run over the thing and it appears on the screen while it's moving over here, the number actually updates right away. And the reason is because of update and the way that frames work and, you know, some math you don't really care about, but it makes it more visually appealing and make sure that it doesn't lag behind. Okay? So we'll come back to that, but for now it's called update total, 2 parens like that with a little at the end. Okay. So now let's go ahead and create a new function here. And this is one that we've already written in another code that's going to come into this, so we have to do stuff here for it to actually pull from. Remember when we said we're going to reach forward, we're going to set what type of material we're doing. Let's go back and take a look. So back in here, we were down here and we said, let's pass along what type of resource. We're calling in our pickup UI move, which is the name of our script, by the way, as we talked about. We're going to call set resource type, and we're going to give it a resource type. So here we are. Let's make that public void set resource type, and we need to have a string that it's going to bring in called resource type. And I did it with lowercase r here, and then the upper R is our variable here in the code here. Okay, so what we do is we just right away we just say resource type name, the local one, is equal to the thing that got passed into us. Okay, so it's like receiving a phone call. I pick up the phone and I hear the person's voice. I've received the information. Now, all of this looks scary, but it's really actually very simple. This is just a fancy if statement. Think of it that way. And an if statement, you know, if this, then do this. Very simple. A switch is just like a multi-if statement. So I'm going to say switch, and in parens, I'm going to bring in the thing I'm evaluating. I'm evaluating the type name of the resource, wood, stone, or metal. Okay? And then I'm going to say, on a case-by-case basis, literally, I'm going to say case wood, just like this, in quotations, and a little colon there. If this is wood, then do this. And you do the break, saying break, go back, and evaluate the next one. If it's stone, do this. If it's metal, do this. These happen to be each the same set of 3 lines, with the exception being the name of the icons. Okay, so these are going to look for objects with tags. So let's go over how to make tags real fast. It's pretty simple. In our world here, as you're doing stuff around, you can select any object. And up here at the top, you'll see that there's a tag thing here. And these are all different tags that I can choose from. Now, tagging objects is a great way to kind of categorize them, because then you can say, search for objects with this tag. And that's exactly what we're about to do. So each of these objects, these are the screen objects here, these guys. So I'm selecting them here. These guys each have their own specialized tag, and that's how we're going to find them. So to create a new tag, if you don't have a bunch of weird tags like I do here from all the various things I've done, you're just going to click on the tag, and then at the bottom here you see it says add tag. Pretty simple. You click the plus, and then let's add our tag. So I'll make a tutorial tag because I'll probably use that in the future. And just click save. So for this, what I've done is I have 6 tags. I have wood icon, wood text, stone icon, stone text, metal icon, metal text. That's it. And to get away from this, once you've done this, just click on anything over here. And we're back to everything. So now if we go back to our wood total image, I'm going to make sure that's set to wood icon. The text right beneath it, I'm going to set that to wood text. And we'll come over how to make these in a moment, so don't worry about that. But these are just UI objects, and we'll make them in a second. But I just wanted to let you know that the code is going to be looking for those things. All right, so let's finish this. We'll come back to that. So each of these is the same except for the type of resource here. So the first one says the image is equal to GameObject.findGameObject with tag, the tag that we just made, okay? So it's going to look through every object in our scene and go, which one has this tag? Oh, that one does. Okay, then set that to be that. Same thing for the text. So we're finding our image and our text. Once we've found our text, we're going to fill this variable of getText with the actual text of that TextMesh Pro, okay? So once we've found the TextMesh Pro object, we're going to say, hey, get the component, get the TextMesh Pro component, get its text, and fill this bucket with that text. Okay, so now the idea is that we call this one function, and regardless if it's wood, stone, or metal, it will get properly filled out for us. Awesome. Okay, so we're almost done. I know there's a couple more lines here, but don't worry, we're almost done. So on update, every frame we want to do something. What do we want to do? We're going to get a position that is a little bit closer to our goal. So we're going to start where we are, and then we're going to say object transform dot anchored position, because we are a UI object, is equal to a vector2.lerp. And lerp stands for linear interpolation. So this literally just means from A to B, we want to go a little bit closer every frame, okay? And we're going to go from our current position to where we want to go, and then we need to tell it how fast. So typically you do time.delta time, makes it move kind of in real time, so to speak. You know, it keeps up with the frame counter. Excuse me. But we're going to multiply that by our speed variable that we made, and the speed variable helps us to kind of adjust how quickly it goes. Okay, makes sense. So now that we have a position that is a little bit closer, let's set our current position equal to that position, okay? Then we're going to say, now that we've moved a little bit, we've inched forward a little bit, we're going to say, how far are we from our goal? So we're going to say distance to target is equal to vector2.distance between where we are and where we want to go, our target position. Okay, we're just kind of measuring. Okay, now we're 3 inches, now we're 2.75 inches, now we're 2.5 inches, that kind of thing. Then what I'm going to do here is add another function. This is called late update. So this is similar to update, but this happens after update. So we make sure that all of this is done and settled, and then we do this. So this is a built-in one, but it's not standard when you go to create a brand new code, so you just have to type this out. So void late update, capital L, capital U, and then again do your curly braces. And we're going to check something to see if something is true. If we're close enough, then we want the icon to go away, right? So we're going to say if, and then in parentheses here, if our distance to target is less than the value we set as close enough, then we want to do stuff, okay? Now, here's a bonus here. I was going to make the icon swell when the new resource came into it. It kind of go whoop, you know, but couldn't quite get that working yet with the animation, so that's going to be a bonus. If you can do that, that's really cool. Let me know how you did it. I'm still learning that a little bit, but that will come later. So as long as it's close enough, we're just going to destroy the object for now, because we don't want them to kind of pile up. Because then every resource you picked up would technically still exist. You might not be able to see it, but it would just be weird. It would bog down the system eventually. So then we're going to make one more function for ourselves called update total. And this we already did up here as far as the order of things. We've already said that we're going to do this. See, way up here in the start, when we were getting all of our references to things, we ran the update total. And this is the thing that actually says go and update the numbers on the screen. So we're calling the function here. So down here we have to actually make it. And that's not a big deal. We're just going to type this. Just add some space, void update total, and just 2 parens. It doesn't take anything in. It just, does stuff. So what we're going to do here is we're going to increase the resource count. So we need to turn the displayed text into an integer, or called an int. This is a number. So this is the phrasing, unfortunately, I'm sorry, but int dot try parse. So this means that we're going to attempt to take a string and turn it into a number, and it works out, so it's fine. We're going to give it our get text, and our get text, remember, is up here where we go into the actual text icon and say, hey, what is your text? And right now it's the number 0 as expressed as text. And we're going to say, out of this, I want to fill the variable text amount. So text amount, if we look up here again, text amount is right here. And look, he's an integer. So he's a number. So down here, we say, hey, I want you to turn get text into a number and fill text amount with that number. That's what this says, okay? So increase this number by 1. So text amount plus plus, semicolon. That means take the amount that this is, and 8 plus plus means increase it by 1. Cool, so now if it's 0, it should be 1. But it's still a number, and the thing we have on the screen is technically text. So now we need to turn this number back into text. So we're going to say get text equals text amount dot toString, and then the parens and end with a semicolon. That means take our text amount, get text is equal to text amount toString. So we're going to say this string, fill it with this number converted back to a string. Okay? Then we're going to reach into the actual text object again and set it back to our new value. So resource.text, or resource text, get component, text mesh pro GUI dot text. So we're actually reaching into the actual text where you would type text and say fill it with our new get text, which has now been turned into a number and back again. He's been converted back and forth. Then we're going to do one more thing here, and what we're going to do is say, while we're reaching into this object, so you see this line and this line are the same up to this point, I'm going to do a dot force mesh update, because technically the text mesh pro stuff is a mesh, and it sometimes has trouble updating, but if we can do a force mesh update, we can say, no, update now, don't wait until the update comes. That just makes it work a lot easier. Okay, I know that was a lot, but we're all done with coding. Woo! We're all done with coding, and now we can just go into the scene and make it work. Alright, so let's begin with the images on the screen. So for our canvas object here, we need to make some images and some text. And because we've already imported everything and everything's all set up, now we just connect all the dots. So under canvas, I'm going to right click and say UI, and I'm just going to say image. Alright? And you see my image appears on the screen. It's a little white square right now. So I'm going to go into my resource icons, PNG, and let's pick something that isn't anywhere. This axe looks pretty cool. So I'm going to say image, and I'm going to bring this axe over. And I want to drop that right there. So now there you go. I'm getting an axe on the screen. Cool. So then I can move it around. This is much easier to do if I go to the screen like this. Yeah, let's just do this. Pull back, and we can see everything. There we go. So I can move this around wherever I want it to go. It'd be easiest to do kind of like this. So we put an axe underneath there. And if I look at the game view, see that'll appear there. So each of these guys is just that same thing, but then I put the icon on here that I wanted it to be. You can ignore the animator. That was me trying to make them swell. So there you go. So just putting those on there, that's all there is to it. The text is a Text Mesh Pro. So if I right click and say, let's see, UI, Text Mesh Pro text, I'm going to create that, and it looks kind of weirder here, but then you could just type in your text. And for me, I just started with a 0 because I knew it was going to be a number. And if I look at each of these, the values here are, let's see, 75 by 75. And these are shown much better here. Here you go. So that makes it just nice and square, because I don't imagine you'll probably have over double digits for any resource. And then I've just lined everything up with numbers that were happy numbers. My numbers here are my notes here. I've got a little piece of paper. So the images are at, everything is along this line. Remember I talked about that? So that your X position, everything's at negative 825. Then the verticality is really all we're playing with. So for this image, we're at 400. For this text, we're at 350. For this image, we're at 200, 150, and then 0, and then negative 50. Okay, so if I wanted this guy to line up with everything else, I could very easily do that by saying negative 825. And then for this guy, I'd have to do probably, looks like negative 150. Or no, maybe negative 200, yeah. And now he would line up with everything else at least, and I'm keeping my UI in a nice clean state. Okay, so those are all done, and they are largely ceremonial and just visual representations. And again, they're going to get referenced by our code and get changed that way. So, cool. We're done with that. We can close the canvas. So now comes the fun part of making things in the world. So let's bring up our character. Whoop. So to create these guys, okay? Oh, we do need to write one more quick script, and that is to get things to face the camera. So to do that, that's incredibly simple, and I'll show you how that works. So to create our objects in the world, these are actually plane objects. So if I create a brand new plane, so let's go game object, 3D object, plane. It's huge. It's way too big. So let's put it at the origin, 0, 0, 0. Which is right beneath my feet. And I'm going to set it to 0.05 by 0.05 by 0.05. There you go. That's a lot more manageable, okay? So let's move that over here, move it up one. So what I've done here to create these pickups is I made this plane object, then I made a duplicate of it, and I made the duplicate a child of this. So I'm going to name the top one the name of the pickup. So let's make an axe pickup. Okay, so I'm going to say axe pickup because that axe looks really cool, so I want to use it. So then this guy I'm going to call billboard. And the idea here is that in early days of video games, and even in some games today, style-wise, these are called billboards because they're flat and they just always face the camera. So the billboard one in the middle is right like that. And if we look at any of these guys next to us, we can kind of follow along here. So you see how this guy has two scripts on him, and the billboard is just the image, right? So let's do the same thing here. So this billboard object is actually going to be rotated as well, 90 degrees upwards, right? Let's look at that. Yeah, 90 degrees on the rotation X. So we rotate our billboard. You can't see it yet because it's on the opposite side, but it's okay because he's going to face the camera real soon. So let's go ahead and pick our image. So here's our X. I think it's the R is the one we want. So billboard, XR, just drag it over here and drop. Or is it XT? Oh no, it is XR. We have to change the type of shader that's being used here. So I'm going to click standard and I'm going to say UI, unlit, and I'm going to say transparent. There we go. So now I can see the axe from both sides. Very cool. There's my axe. Now, the problem is this thing looks kind of stupid, right? Okay, so let's just not display it. So I'm going to turn off the mesh renderer for the top plane. So now it won't even show up. See, if you look at this guy, same kind of thing. His mesh collider is working, but his mesh renderer is not. So the same thing down here. We're going to go to this guy and say mesh renderer not working, mesh collider. We're going to turn on and we're going to say is trigger. This means that when I run over this, I'm going to get a resource. Well, not yet, because we need to add these code to it. So I need to add my collectible type code to this. So let's go to our scripts and select my new axe pickup and add my collectible type. So that's this guy here. So I'm just going to select this, grab this guy, drag him over. There you go, collectible type. So I can tell it what kind of resources it's going to get. Let's say we get some metal from this. We're just going to harvest just the metal, and the wood is going to be scrapped, right? So if you look at this guy, same kind of thing. And you notice that this takes a collectible metal type. Well, what is that? That's a prefab we have to make. So no worries. Let's go into prefabs. Let's take a look at these. All these are, and I've got an extra one here. This is my one that I use for testing. All these are is an image that we make under the canvas. We apply this script, we set up some settings, and we save it. Okay? Nice and simple. Let's make one together. All right, so under the canvas, I'm going to right-click and I'm going to say UI, and let's create an image. Cool. I'm going to name it Axe. Very cool. Okay, now we're going to put our script on it. So under image, Axe. There we go, yeah. Axe is on the screen. He's on the screen here, we just can't see it yet. So for Axe, I want to add the pickup script. Okay, because this is, once the thing is moving, where do we want it to go? Well, we talked about that. So negative 825. And I want to go to, what was it, minus 200, minus 150. I got to figure that out. Let's see. That was this guy, minus 200. Okay, cool. So minus 200. Speed, I want it to go, let's say 3. All right, and my close enough, I set 5. Now my resource, image, and text are going to get picked up. I don't think I have to pick anything else in here, but we can check out our prefabs to double check ourselves. Yep, just 5, and everything else gets picked up for us, so we don't have to worry about it, all right? So now the axe is now a valid thing. And let's come up here and look at him on the screen. He's going to be right in the middle here. All right, there he is. Now the problem is that our axe, let's delete some of these other things. Let's delete this guy. Delete this guy. Axe here, he still needs the sprite. So let's do that real quick. So we're going to give him his image, okay? Because we want him to look cool. Put it in there. There you go. So once that's all set up, you got to do one of these for each of these guys, okay? Because this is the thing that's going to appear on the screen and slide over. Once that's all set up, you just create, you don't even have to create a prefabs folder, but I do just to kind of keep all my prefabs together, and click and drag from here into the prefabs. And it will show up like this, a little box because it's a prefab. But don't worry, if you select these other ones, you'll see they're exactly the same. And the only thing that changes is the source image and where it's going to. All right, there you go. Very cool. So that's all set up. Now, that's the thing on the screen though. We need to still finish up creating these. So once we created our 2 plane objects, I'm sorry, I got a little distracted there. So once we create our 2 plane objects, now we have this available, this collect type. And I can say, okay, the axe is what gets selected here. So I'm going to put that in there. So now the thing in the world can tell me what it is I'm supposed to pick up there. All right, and let's test it out. So if I hit play, let's see if I missed anything on our axe guy here. Okay, so everybody's all set, and then I run over this guy. There you go, the axe goes into the appropriate place and he disappears. Now he doesn't have any numbers, but notice I got 1 metal for that because we told it metal is the thing that we want. Okay, very cool. So again, just like we pulled down these prefabs, once these guys are all set up, so once our axe guy here is all set up, our axe pickup, select the axe pickup, not the billboard part, but the axe pickup, and drag and drop them into here. And now, just like these other guys that I've created here, you'll see these are really cool. You can kind of rotate them around. We have an axe pickup. So let's do something pretty cool. We'll come over here and let's add an axe pickup to this over here. So this guy, we'll throw a couple of axes over here. There you go, and that's the fun part. Now that all the hard work is done, now you can just run around and play with it, all right? So now that we hit play, and let's give it a chance to settle. There you go, okay. So I'm gonna pick up an axe and get 1 metal for it, 1 of each resource right there. And let's just run over here to our little pile. And I should get 3 metal, so we should be up to 5 metal by the time I'm done with this pile. And then 1 more of each other, okay? Boom, boom, boom. There you go. And there you go, up to 5 and 1 more of each. Perfect. That's working perfectly. So we run around and now we can pick up all of our objects. And we just go boom, 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 pick them all up, and you can set them up and do all kinds of crazy amounts. And using our late update and using the fact that we force a refresh outside of the normal cycle, we're now able to actually have these things update in rapid succession. So this makes it a lot easier to do something crazy like this. So if I just take a copy of everything, and this is going to be kind of stupid, but try not to do something crazy, but let's select this. I want to make a whole bunch of something. So if I duplicate this and just kind of make like a huge pile of barrels in the back here, right? So let's just kind of go nuts with this for a second here. Something like that. Like we got a ton of barrels in the back now, right? Let's save that. And the important thing to note is that we have all these resources here in the scene view, but they all disappear as we use them, right? So I'm going to pick up my resources, and I can just be kind of quick about it here, and bloop, 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 bloop. Now watch the wood go nuts. So all this is updating rapidly. See, it's keeping up with us. It's not lagging out, and the reason is that we're doing both those late update and then we're forcing a refresh, so we make sure we collect all of our objects. And there we go, guys. We made some really cool resources here that kind of move across the screen and fill in. We got numbers there, and you can query those numbers to get like an actual inventory system going on. But that's all I got for today, guys. I hope you really enjoyed. I will put the scripts up for download. I will not include the graphics because it is a paid asset, but I will include a link to the paid asset. It's $10. Go give this guy the respect he deserves. They're great icons. I've only used 4 out of like the 100 that he provided. It's amazing. So I hope you guys have enjoyed. If you have any questions, if you have trouble doing the coding, please let me know. I'm sorry, I tried to explain it the best I can, but that's why I provide the code for you, so you can just hook it all up and make it work. And if you guys have problems, I can try to put up the whole package somewhere, like the entire project somewhere, and then you can kind of decode it. But I'm here if you need any help. Let me know. I'll be happy to help. So as always, guys, keep practicing, get better, and I'll see you next time as the pilgrimage continues.